Okay, today's notes are on intro to political parties, like Democrats, Republicans, that kind of thing. I'm sitting in class right now with 12 kids who came to tutoring, and they're going to listen to the notes too. Here we go. All right, so our essential question that we're going to answer on our summary is, describe two functions of political parties. What do they do? Okay, so there are three components of political parties. Number one, this is the party in the government, like elected officials that are Democrats, elected officials that are Republicans or independents. And then there's the party in the electorate. That's people like you and me. These are the voters. And the way the voters are. And then there's party organizations. It's kind of boring, but we're going to get into it today in the notes, like the different ways that parties are structured at different levels and how it works and how they develop opinions on different matters and that kind of thing. Okay, party leaders occupy positions in the presidency, in Congress, in our state government, like as the governor of California is a Democrat, or state legislatures. Like, I don't know what it is, 75% of California's legislature is made up of Democrats. And in local government, like in Eastvale even, I know somebody on the Eastvale City Council who is a Republican, so even at local level, people are registered as being associated with a certain party. But sometimes, and especially in local government, sometimes they don't have an affiliation, so it just depends. But pretty much as you move up the chain, it's more and more likely somebody's going to be labeled as part of a certain party. Okay, party in the electorate is how you are registered when you register to vote. Pretty much you're registered as a Democrat or Republican. If you register as an independent, that's you actively saying, I choose not to put a party down. So independent's not really a party. Like, there's no independent structure. It's just saying, I choose not to identify myself with a party. Like Bernie Sanders is one of the few people that's registered as an independent, although he's running for the Democratic nomination, so that's a little bit interesting. Okay, when it comes to the structure of the parties at the national level, like the federal level, there is a certain organization to it, and the highest authority is the National Convention. They meet every 4 years. If you see the picture in the background, it's like the big party they have when they're nominating the president after the primary season is done, and they have a big national convention where they decide some of their stances on different issues. This is like the highest level of the party, and then there are different levels. So there's the national committee. So when there is no convention, you have the national committee, and they're headed up by different people that I'll show you. Those people are the chairperson that you see there in bullet number 3. And then there's congressional campaign committees for House seats and Senate campaign committees for Senate seats. Okay, so these are two people that are in charge. On the left, this guy's in charge of the Republican Party, and on the right, this lady is in charge of the Democratic Party. I can picture her because she's been in the news a lot because the Democrats have chosen to debate way less than the Republicans. So she's being criticized a lot because it was kind of like up to her a little bit. And some people like Jim Webb and Lincoln Chafee and Martin O'Malley are complaining. Actually, Bernie Sanders is too, that they want to debate more and more and more, and then she's had some awkward situations, including an awkward hug. I wonder if that's maybe some of the videos down here. I'll probably embed some of these videos in the little online quiz so we can check them out. Okay, on a lower level of the party organization, we have state committees, which are obviously at the state level. We have local committees, which are like at the city, the ward, and the precinct level. But the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee, they can't punish local committees if they don't stick to like the same party ideals. So maybe the Democratic Party in a real Republican area, maybe they're against abortion in a certain little area, but the national party's not going to punish those local Democrats for straying from the party line. So we would say, and I think I can picture this on test, that parties are decentralized in that they're spread out at different levels of government, federal, state, local. Okay, back in the day, I think I talked about the way that presidents were chosen was kind of a little bit corrupt back in the day. That you would have a bunch of guys in a room and they'd kind of be picking who would represent the Democrats or who would represent the Republicans. But over time, the people's voice has gotten much more involved. So we have caucuses, now we have primaries, okay? And with the expansion of primaries now, the power of the party is lessened. Think of Donald Trump. The Republican Party doesn't really want him to win. They've pretty much made that much clear. But it doesn't matter what they want. It matters what the people want. And right now he's polling #1. So that's an example of how the modern nomination process weakens the power of parties because we get a voice in who we want to be elected instead of just going along with whoever they pick, who would probably just be like an establishment insider kind of candidate. So Trump is actually a perfect example to demonstrate this point. So this is starting to disappear a little bit, but parties, one of their major purposes back in the day was to raise and spend money on behalf of the candidate, especially when we figure out who they're going to pick as president. Let's say they're going to back Hillary Clinton eventually and she wins the primary season. They spend a bunch of money to like register voters and get Democrats out to vote. But this is becoming a little bit less frequent because they're not getting as much donations as candidates. Now people more picture elections as a candidate and they think of it less as the party. So more and more money is going to the person and less to the party. But still millions of dollars get donated to the Democrats or to the Republicans to be spent for broad purposes. But the same restrictions are on that money as the money donated to a person. Another function of political parties is to register voters, kind of like what I just said. So a big thing that parties do is they go to states, especially those swing states, where maybe they could win the election, and they try to register as many voters as they possibly can, probably to match their party, for instance. Like try to go to an area where there'd be a lot of impoverished poor people if you're the Democrats and you want to register them, and even maybe provide buses to get them to vote on election day. Also, by having somebody run for an election and then they have to list what party they are, it's making it easier for voters to make a decision because, for instance, in LA Community College District, 133 people ran on the ballot and they didn't even have a party label. And it's difficult for voters to even know, is this a conservative person, a liberal person? I have no idea because they're not even labeled as a Democrat or as a Republican. So the label helps it. It's easier to know who to vote for on election day. Okay, so I'm talking a lot about parties and the roles that they play, which kind of plays into our summary. So don't forget about your summary question. What else do parties do? They help unify diverse interests. If you think of FDR, during the Great Depression, he was elected by a whole bunch of different types of people, from minorities to middle class, white people to everything. So he had what you'd call a grand coalition of different types of people that were voting for him. And it's the party that helps reach all those different people and expand the vote. But because parties want to appeal to as many people as possible, sometimes they don't take strong stands on stuff like maybe the Exxon, or what's it called? The pipeline that they want to build from Canada down into the Gulf of Mexico. Maybe the party doesn't take a stance on that because they don't want to be too controversial. So sometimes parties play it safe and don't take a stance on issues. Because of this, the U.S. is not as party-driven as like Europe, for instance, where it's really easy to tell what someone believes if you know what party they're in. In America, a Democrat in Alabama is very different from a Democrat in California or a Democrat in New York City. As a result of this, in order to win especially like a national election for president, parties usually nominate a moderate person with a vast appeal, someone that can win Democrat votes in California and win Democrat votes in Florida. And as a result, the fringe elements kind of get squeezed out. When parties nominate people that are extreme, they pay the price because they're not going to win the election. Think of presidents that have run in the past that were extreme. They didn't win because on a national stage, Americans want to nominate somebody who's more middle ground. And we talked before about during the primary season, people are extreme in their beliefs, but when it comes to actually running for president, they tone it down and they pretend like they're very middle of the road in order to win the election. Again, this is different from Europe because they don't have to like pretend they're middle of the road. They can get elected even taking extreme positions that match the party. Okay, so the theory with political parties is that they're supposed to bring the government together in order to overcome like checks and balances, because checks and balances can make things difficult to get stuff done. Like all the Democrats in Congress will vote one way and the president who's a Democrat will sign a bill. But in reality, people tend to split their tickets and we have divided government, like today, like a Congress that's Republican and a president that's Democrat, and so this doesn't necessarily work out that way. But parties are supposed to unify people and overcome checks and balances. The reality is not so much. Down here at the bottom, it's just reminding you that when you vote on a ballot and all the Republicans are, hold on, let me make sure I get this right. When you're voting and all the Republicans are on the left and the Democrats are on the right or whatever, you're voting in a party column ballot, which would lead to more of the voters will vote like all Democrat or all Republican. If you vote by office, like the governor, the president, the Congress, and you have both Democrats and Republicans listed, you're voting in an office column ballot. Okay, so one of the things parties should do is provide patronage. That's like hire people to work in government that match your party. So the president's going to hire his buddies for jobs like Department of Defense and Secretary of State. In theory, this should ensure the will of the people is carried out, but in the past, a lot of government jobs are filled by civil service, which means you have to pass a test. And sometimes when you have people appointing their buddies within the party, it turns into corruption, like President Harding's Ohio gang or Nixon's Palace Guard. People that he agrees with and that agree with him. Okay, we're finishing up here. Another function of parties is to inform the public through party platform. A party platform is a list of ideas or beliefs of how the party feels. Like, for instance, in the Democrats' platform, they're pro-choice. In the Republican platform, they're against abortion. In the Democrat platform, they're pro-gay marriage. In the Republican platform, they're against gay marriage. So you can find this. And they make changes to this every 4 years in a presidential election. Parties are also an agent of political socialization, which means that they inform the electorate and like influence the way that they feel about different decisions. Maybe you don't know how you feel about the oil pipeline, and then you hear the Democrats are against it, and you're a Democrat, and then you're like, yeah, I guess that's how I should feel. I'm against the pipeline because they told me to. And they are, this is bold, they are a linking mechanism between the people and the government. But the number one thing that parties try to do is get people elected. That's their number one goal, get people of that party elected. The Democratic Party trying to get Democrats elected, and the same thing for the Republican Party. Okay, don't forget your summary, which is to tell me 2 functions of political parties. Really, that should be more. If you want to be most and impress me, maybe you want to write down all the functions, because I could see this as a FRQ. What do political parties do? And then do me a favor, we ran out of time today, but can you check out your study guide for political action committees and check out your study guide for Intro to Political Parties and answer the questions on the quiz, the same quiz you're watching this video on. Have a nice day. Get ready for your presentations last class. Bye-bye. Say goodbye, kids.
Bye.
Okay.